All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to The Thoughtful Entrepreneur. I am your host, Jen Amos, and I am really excited to introduce my guest on the show today. We have Cory Lee, who is the CEO and founder of Cory Lee Leadership. His website is coryleeleadership.com, and he is the co-host of the podcast show, Principal with Cory and Logan. Cory, welcome to the show.
Jen, thanks for having me on. I'm excited about our conversation today.
Yes, I was already online stalking you before we went on, and I'm just really excited to dive into what you do. Why don't we start out with you sharing a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah. So what I do is I do basically, I have a consulting business where I speak, I coach, I train, mainly entrepreneurs and leaders. One of the things I'm very passionate about is I truly believe at the core of somewhere deep down in here, Jen, that we really need more leaders that have a pure conscience, pure motives, and full of faith to be pursuing high levels of leadership and influence. And that's kind of what I do. I go in and work with companies to develop leadership culture. I also work one-on-one with entrepreneurs and leaders. But really my background is actually in the medical field. Mm-hmm. I'm a physical therapist assistant and an entrepreneur. My wife and I, in a 5-year period of time, we built 4 gyms, 2 physical therapy clinics, and in that 5-year period of time, had 3 kids, built those businesses, sold the businesses, kept all the kids. But it was
thank
a
goodness.
Very busy time. And since then, really transitioned out and really helping, you go through something like that and you learn a lot of lessons, some of those the hard way, and really want to help other entrepreneurs kind of build the business of their dreams. And like I said, develop other leaders. And that's kind of what I do now. But the background is as an entrepreneur in the medical field. So
yeah, that's amazing. I want to go back to really just your specialty in building leaders. Tell us a little bit about what leadership means to you, because I know that, I forgot what book it was, but it describes different levels of leadership. But one of them, one of them mentioned that it's like a certain title, but that's not the only type of leadership. So when you're teaching leadership to your clientele, what does that mean for you?
Yeah. So Jen, if we went to my friend Google and looked up leadership, we'd probably get like 2 million definitions of what leadership is. And
right.
To me, leadership is all about that being side of an individual, right? It's becoming the type of leader that other people will fully follow because of what you represent. It's much more a beingness. You're talking about levels of leadership, 5 levels of leadership, and that first level is title and position.
Right.
And that's great, right? A title and a position. The great thing about that is that somebody somewhere along the way saw talent and potential within you, and you were given a title and invited to the leadership table. Mm-hmm. But really all a title does is it buys you some time, and it buys you some time to gain influence or to undermine your influence. And there's a saying out there that character, or talent can get you in the room, but character keeps you in the room, right? And that's to me is what leadership is all about, is becoming that type of man or woman that other people willfully, they choose to follow because of who you are and what you represent. And that's hard work, right? It is hard work, that inner game, that character side of it, but it's so vital, right? Is that character can keep you in the room. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a wonderful definition. And I think for myself, I've been an entrepreneur for the last decade now. But when I was first starting out trying to get a job, I was fired. I was actually fired, as a little backstory. I was fired from like 4 jobs. And like the majority of them, for me, it was because of the authority, like my bosses. And I felt like it was kind of, maybe they felt entitled to treat me a certain way or talk to me a certain way, or, have me do certain things that maybe wasn't even part of my description, my job description. And I couldn't handle it. And at first, at the time, obviously it was like, I felt like it was a failure for me to get fired from those jobs. But looking back, I realized like, no, I just didn't agree with the leadership. And, I think today, like I work with my husband and I follow him as a leader. I mean, I'm a leader too, let's not forget that. But I follow him as a leader because of who he is, not because of, his credentials, not because of, his background, but because of what he stands for. And that draws me, that's the reason why I work with him and do things with him. So I really like how you elaborated on what leadership means to you and how you, instill that in your clientele.
Yeah. Yeah. You say that. I just say they allowed you to pursue other opportunities. They allowed you to pursue your dream, right?
Absolutely.
But, another part of that in leadership, and especially we're talking about entrepreneurship and, as you start building a team and people come around you, one of the things I found is, that people buy into you, the leader, first before they buy into your vision, right? They have to buy into the leader first before they buy into that vision. And once they do that and they have a compelling vision, people want to be a part of something and they want to do it with people that they trust too. And I love what you said right there, following your husband and leadership, that character component of it is key.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that, it's important for people to buy into you before they buy into your vision. So I'm curious, what have your clientele said about you as someone who has helped them? I'm curious to hear what they've said about you and that maybe you're proud of. You're like, oh, I'm glad that I have that kind of, I embody that.
Well, Jen, I'll tell you one of the things I've struggled with for a long time is humility, and having the wrong definition of humility. When people try to give compliments, shucks, that's nothing, right? And
right.
And one of the things I've had to learn is that humility isn't thinking less of yourself, but it's thinking of yourself less. And recognizing the gifts and talents that you have, and offering those to the world and serving other people with those gifts. And when you have a false sense of humility, you can't do that. So when you say that kind of comes to my mind, a lot of the things I struggle with, but some of the things that, some guys that I've worked with and some ladies that I've worked with is, you can have a coach or a mentor come alongside him, and there's some really good ones and they're very intelligent. But some of the ones that have told me is I can just sense that you care. Right? Like I truly care. And people can tell when you're just tolerating people, when you're just doing a job, or when you're just going through the motions, and they can also tell when you truly care about them. And I do. I love people, and I think at the heart of leadership that's got to be a foundation. So when people say that, and when they've told me that, I can just tell that you care. That means a lot. Helping as a coach and then as a trainer, I had a guy ask me, like, how do we know if you're doing us a good job or not? And the answer is, well, you're getting the results that you're looking for. But for me also, when people have compliments like that I can tell that you care, then I know that that's winning for me too. So to me, those are some of the biggest compliments.
Very cool. I know that you struggled answering that question, so I appreciate that you did. I think it's important to, pat ourselves on the back every now and then, and I completely understand that. When I remember for me, a lot of times when people would compliment me, I would just maybe throw it back at them like, no, you're pretty or you're smart, but even for myself, I think in the recent years, I appreciate people complimenting me because that's feedback. It tells me, what am I doing right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's actually kind of a lot of part of my story was, we all grew up with these little idioms, like money doesn't grow on trees, or you got to be in the right place at the right time. One of mine was stay humble, right? And that's great if you have the right definition of humility, but because I had the wrong definition, I lacked a lot of self-confidence. I actually decided to go to college to be a physical therapist assistant because I didn't think I was smart enough to be a real physical therapist.
Wow.
Had an invitation to walk on and play college baseball, but because I knew the catcher that team already had was way better than me, and I didn't deserve to be on the same field as that guy, I didn't even show up for my tryout. And it was all because I had the wrong definition of humility. And I think it's Adrian Rogers teaching on humility. He said that, humility is actually a form of rebellion. And I was like, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to sit on that for a minute.
Yeah. Well, I did too. But what he was saying was, we got these gifts and talents. And when we start to let those gifts and talents shine, then people call that arrogance. We said, that's not arrogance, that's awareness. And the moment you step in and you don't bring that forward, the moment you step in and you hold that back because you're having a sense of humility, then that's rebellion against the gifts that God has freely given you. So I had to recognize, and I hope our listeners do too, that every single one of us have our own gifts, talents, and abilities. And this world is in need of us using those gifts, talents, and abilities. And if we don't bring those forward, we don't only rob ourselves of something incredible, we rob the world of something incredible too. So it's interesting you asked me about that. Because that is something that's kind of part of my journey and something that I've had to come to learn too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just knowing that it is one thing to stay humble, but it's another thing to have a sense of responsibility. Just like what you said, if you have these God-given gifts and talents, you have to use it. You have to put it out there unapologetically. I mean, make it appropriate, obviously, and do it in the right way to serve others. But yeah, to immediately minimize yourself because because of that saying, stay humble, it really does a disservice to yourself and to people who could really benefit from that. So I think that is a really, I appreciate us having that discussion because I think that a lot of entrepreneurs may even struggle with that. They may feel like they're not allowed to shine too bright. Or if they do have that mentality of be of service to others, they always make it a point to, let's say, like actively stay behind the scenes and not get that recognition or that feedback that, hey, you're doing a great job. Because maybe it's easier to deflect it than to really embrace it and be like, yeah, I am that.
That's right. Receive it, yeah. Entrepreneur, receive it.
Yes. It's okay to receive a compliment and to know that you're on the right track.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, Cory, I was looking on your website and I have to say that I really like your mission statement. So I want to just read it real quick. And I'd love for you to elaborate where it came from and why you chose to focus on this. So your mission statement here is you specifically like to work with men who have the desire to grow personally and professionally, but not at the expense of their faith, their family, or their fitness. You shared a little bit about your family background with me already and how you built your businesses. So I'm guessing a part of this mission statement stems from that. Does that sound about right?
Oh, definitely. So like I said, in a 5-year period of time, we had 4 gyms, 2 physical therapy clinics, and 3 small kids. You can imagine. So I can remember, so I love business, right? I loved what we did and what we do. Mm-hmm. And I can remember we had a CrossFit gym. So I would get up at 4:30 in the morning. I would coach our CrossFit classes until 8, and then from 8 to 4:30 be at the therapy clinic, and then from 4:30 to like 8:30 at night at the CrossFit gym. And long days, but I loved it, right? Like you were saying, it doesn't feel like a job. You enjoy it, right? But I can remember one afternoon, it was about 4:00 in the afternoon. I was telling our oldest son at the time, hey, good night, bye. I'm going to the gym. You'll be asleep by the time I get home. And he looked up at me and he said, Daddy, you going to your house? I was like, ooh, that let me know. I got called out by a 2-year-old.
Wow. Yeah. Smart kid.
Yeah. Right. But so I realized that some things were out of the priority order, right? For me, and I think that's something that each entrepreneur has to determine, what are your priorities? And for me, they were out of order, but also it's kind of twofold. One is that, and then the other one is that as we were growing our business, we knew that if our business was going to grow, we had a ton of enthusiasm and a ton of excitement, but Jen, we had 0 business knowledge and business experience.
Right.
So we knew that in order for our business to grow, that we as the leaders needed to grow, that we were the lid on that business. And if we didn't grow, our business would never exceed our ability to lead it. So we went to the courses, the seminars, the webinars, we read the books, right? We found people who could mentor us and train us from a distance. But I did not have that individual or that group of guys that I could go to that I could ask questions to, that could relate to what I was going through as an entrepreneur, who could serve as guardrails as I wanted to grow my business, but not at the expense of my faith, my family, or my fitness, who had the flashlight to kind of shine the light in, and who could hold me accountable to my commitments. So I didn't have that. So as an entrepreneur, what do? We create it, right? So
Yes.
That's where we kind of got the mission statement from, and we created some male entrepreneur mastermind groups to create a space for guys that fill in the gap right there. They can be around other successful, intelligent entrepreneurs who can relate to them. And that's kind of a passion of mine. I do obviously work with women in the leadership and one-on-one coaching, but I can really relate to what those guys are going through who are wanting to grow their business and not really have somebody to bounce ideas off of and those kind of things. So that's where that comes from, twofold.
Yeah. No, I really love that. And it gets me to think about my husband, who is very, very mission driven, very task oriented. And, we work together, we do like everything together, but sometimes it's hard to, take that mental break and be like, okay, let's be a family, together. And, I wonder if maybe you have dealt with a lot of clientele like that, where maybe they felt like they had to always be the provider. They had to always lead from the front in that way. And if you had, what are some things you can share? And this is me selfishly asking for advice, so I can maybe sort of sneak it in his ear. But, what would you tell, those entrepreneurs who feel like they have to operate in that kind of way, but, at the expense of, faith, family, and even fitness?
Yeah. So it's interesting there, in our groups, they are all driven guys, and I've learned a lot from me personally, even leading the thing, learn from them, and they all have their own different things that work for them, right? Because we're all unique and we're all different. But I think there are some principles we can definitely kind of live by. I know one of the guys in our group, he owns a business, got 2 small kids. So he'll work from like 8 to 5:30, but from 5:30 to 8:30, that is a time where he has put his phone in the other room. He's told his clients, his customers, all that. You don't, if you call, I'm not going to answer. But from 8:30 to 9, once the kids are asleep, he's back at it again. And then 9:30 to whatever time, it's him and his spouse time. Other guys, it's different things, right? So there may be realtors where, deep in the afternoon, 6, 7 o'clock at night, that's prime time for them, right? People are off work, they want to look at houses.
Right.
So they've kind of had to modify, maybe taking lunch breaks with their spouse or their kids. And each one of us are different. And I also know that there are seasons of life too. There, you want to be balanced, but we're never all balanced at one time. So I think it's in harmony with what your total overall goal is, right? There are seasons of life where it is family focused, and there are seasons of life where you got your foot on the gas pedal, where business is a high priority, right? Maybe you got an entrepreneur where they're launching a business. So that is prime time where, that's where a lot of focus goes to, but then it needs to shift back to. But one of the things I've had to learn that I think is a principle is to be present, right? So wherever you're at, be there. And that is tough for me, especially as an entrepreneur. I know I sound like your husband. I can relate to him because the mind is always going.
Right.
Really to be present. And if you want to add value to people, give them your time and your attention, right? And that's one of the things I've had to kind of constantly keep on the forefront of my mind is if I'm there, if I'm having lunch with a friend, I'm having lunch with that friend, not the one on social media, right? So
absolutely.
Be present and really look at kind of what fits for your life with that balance and harmony part.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Cory. I think just like you said, the key thing is to be present. And even for myself, I have to actively put my phone down, like face down. And sometimes I find myself habitually grabbing it again. I was like, no, it's down for a reason, So I appreciate you sharing that. And, I feel like we had such an incredible conversation today. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to share with the fellow entrepreneurs and business owners that is listening to The Thoughtful Entrepreneur?
Yeah. So I guess one last thought is, um, and a real thing that I've really been sitting on and thinking for a while is to be world famous, right? You've got ideas and those kind of things. Be world famous,
Hmm.
but world famous in the eyes of the people that you come in contact with day in and day out. World
I love
famous
that.
in the eyes of the people that know you best. It's having the attitude of it's those closest to me who love and respect me the most. It doesn't really matter what the world thinks if the people closest to you have a bad taste in their mouth from you. So start with that. Be world famous in the eyes of the people who know you best is kind of what I would highly recommend.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. I'm going to butcher this quote, but it goes something like, you may mean nothing to the world, but you can mean the world to one person.
Oh, that's
And
good.
I feel like that is what you're essentially saying is, feel like you are the world to the people that matter the most.
That's good. I like that quote. That's good.
Yeah. Well, Cory, it's been an absolute pleasure having you today. Thank you so much for just taking some time to share some wisdom with our audience today. I personally enjoyed talking with you. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, Jen, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope it's added value to your listeners. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And so, to our listeners, once again, we have Cory Lee here, the CEO and founder of Cory Lee Leadership. If you want to get in contact with him, check out his website, CoryLeeLeadership.com, or you can check out his podcast show, Principal with Cory and Logan. But that's it. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll speak with you in the next episode.